Example of a without prejudice conversation. I'm Richard Hiron, also known as the Hironator, and I'm an employment law solicitor. Now, for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to speak to you as if you are the employee. So for these purposes, I'm going to call you Sue. Hello, Sue. Thank you for coming into the meeting today. I think it's worthwhile for us to have a brief summary of where we are to date. So you've been off sick for the past 6 months with a condition that may be a disability. Now, on that point, we have referred you over to our occupational health advisor to understand more about your condition and whether it does meet the legal conditions to become considered a disability. We are unable to make that determination because we've asked if our occupational health consultant can have a conversation with your consultant who's treating you at the hospital, but you've declined that consent. So that puts us in a very difficult position where all we can make at this stage are adjustments where we can, because we can't confirm whether you have a disability or not. As a result of that, you've raised several grievances against us which have not been upheld. Unfortunately, the situation has moved us along to a position where we're now at loggerheads, and therefore I think it is suitable for me to be having a without prejudice conversation with you. So, hopefully you'll have noticed from that example that before even mentioning a without prejudice conversation, I set out the background to what had happened, as well as the things that are elevating this situation to a pre-existing dispute. So you've got the efforts to find out if the employee actually has a disability, and noting the point that the employee has not actually allowed the employer to have conversations with their consultant, which is their right, but also makes it very difficult because the employer cannot find out the information that it needs to actually bring the employee back into the workplace and to make reasonable adjustments for them. And note that I said actually during the conversation that they've tried to make adjustments, not reasonable adjustments. Now, the reason for that is not to open up another claim for the employee, but essentially to say, look, we can't confirm whether you have a disability or not. So we cannot make reasonable adjustments which apply to a disability because we don't know if you have a disability at all. Now, that does open up the possibility of a reasonable adjustments claim connected to a disability discrimination claim. But in that kind of situation, the employee is not allowing the employer to have contact with the person that they need to have contact with to understand if reasonable adjustments need to be made at all. The final point was about the number of grievances that have been raised and that they have not been upheld. So ordinarily, yes, if we didn't have a discrimination element to all of this, then that could lead into a protected conversation. But the difference here is that we have the potential disability, which might lead to a discrimination claim, and that's why you should be having a without prejudice conversation instead. So as a result of that lead into the conversation, you then set out as the employer what you are prepared to offer the employee. So I hope that's all made sense, but in the meantime, if you'd like to open the door on employment law, come to the Hironator.